This is a joke book from 1884. In researching the Old West, I've found plenty of pranks that early settlers pulled on one another, but I've always been curious about what kind of jokes were spread around during the Victorian era, and that's why I purchased this book. It was first published in 1883, but this is the 1884 edition. The full title is the Wit and Humor of the Age, comprising wit, humor, pathos, ridicule, satires, dialects, puns, conundrums, riddles, charades, jokes, and magic, by Mark Twain, Robert J. Burdett, Josh Billings, Alex Sweet, Eli Perkins, with the Philosophy of Wit and Humor by Melville D. Landon, illustrated, published in Philadelphia. I've gone through the book and picked out some of the shorter jokes and witty remarks to share.
The following conversation took place recently in a hotel. Waiter! Yes, sir. What's this? It's bean soup, sir. No matter what it has been, the question is, what is it now? Now, John, suppose there's a load of hay on one side of the river and a jackass on the other side, and no bridge, and the river is too wide to swim. How can the jackass get to the hay? I give it up. Well, that's just what the other jackass did. A boor is a man who talks so much about himself that you don't get a chance to talk about yourself. What will eventually become of the thoroughly wicked and depraved is a question often asked. They will probably all practice law a little while, and eventually all go to the legislature. If you get the best of whiskey, whiskey will get the best of you. Did any of you ever see an elephant's skin? Inquired a teacher of an infant class. I have, exclaimed one. Where? Asked the teacher. On the elephant. I thank God for allowing fools to live, that wise men may get a living out of them. I've known a mule to be good for 6 months just to get a chance to kick somebody. No bird is actually on the wing. Wings are on the bird. I know a young man who attends church regularly and clasps his hands so tight during prayer time that he can't get them open when the contribution box comes around. When does a married man become a bird? Asked Eli Perkins. Never, sir, never, said Joseph Cook. It is preposterous, Mr. Perkins. When a married man comes home at 2 o'clock in the morning, don't his wife make him quail? Mr. Smith, said a lady at a church festival, won't you buy a bouquet to present to the lady you love? That wouldn't be right, said Mr. Smith. I'm a married man. A judge, pointing with his cane to a prisoner before him, remarked, there is a great rogue at the end of this stick. At which end, Your Honor? Asked the prisoner. A man who was sentenced to be hung was visited by his wife, who said, My dear, would you like the children to see you executed? No, replied he. That's just like you, said she. You never wanted the children to have any enjoyment. A lady passing along the street one frosty morning saw a little fellow scattering salt upon the pavement for the purpose of melting the ice. Well, I'm sure, said the lady, that's real benevolence. Oh, no, ma'am, he replied. It ain't benevolence, it's salt. A boy who discovered a cucumber growing on the vines ran excitedly into the house, exclaiming, Mama, Mama, we've got a pickle on our squash. Uncle John, said little Emily, do you know that a baby that was fed on elephant's milk gained 20 pounds in 1 week? Nonsense. Impossible, exclaimed Uncle John. And then he asked, "Whose baby was it?"
The elephants,
said the little girl. "How long is it since this railroad was completed?" asked a tired passenger on a slow train. "Well, it's now about 5 years since the first train was run over it." "Indeed. Then I suppose we may meet it coming back." "Is this seat engaged, miss?" asked a young swell of a bright-looking maiden on the train the other day.
"No, sir,
She modestly replied.
but I am."
"Sit down," said a nervous old gentleman to his son, who was making too much noise.
"I won't do it,"
Was the impudent answer. "Well then, stand up. I will be obeyed." A Colorado traveler who had chartered half a bed at a crowded hotel and was determined to have the best half, buckled a spur on his heel before turning in. His unfortunate sleeping partner bore the infliction as long as he could, and at last roared out, "Say, stranger, if you're a gentleman, you ought to cut your toenails." An Irishman, hearing of a wonderful musician, concluded to take lessons from him and inquired of his terms. The answer was $6 for the first month and $3 for the second month.
"Then,"
Said the Irishman,
I'll come the second month."
a parson reading the funeral service at the grave forgot the sex of the deceased and asked one of the mourners, an emeralder, "Is this a brother or a sister?"
"Neither,
replied Pat.
only a cousin."
When Ethel was 5 years old, she went to school for the first time.
"How do you like your teacher, Ethel?"
Asked her mama.
"Why, Mama, I don't think the teacher knows very much." "Why not, my dear?" "Why, she keeps asking questions all the time. She asked where the Mississippi River was."
Old Ben Wade was traveling over the Union Pacific Railroad through Cheyenne and Laramie. Sitting down by Jules Daniels, who ran a ranch at Laramie, old Ben remarked, "This is a very bad country. A God-forsaken country, Mr. Daniels." "You are mistaken, Senator," said Jules. "This is a very good country. All it lacks is water and good society." "Yes, that's all hell lacks," growled old Ben. Somebody in Brattleboro came down to New York to ask Fisk for a donation to help them build a new fence around the graveyard where he's now buried. "What in thunder do you want a new fence for?" exclaimed the colonel. "Why, that old fence will keep the dead people in, and live people will keep out as long as they can anyway."
"Ah, George, isn't it delightful that we are to be married so soon? To be sure, we're not rich in this world's goods, but with such love as ours, we can almost live on bread and water, can't we, dear?"
"Easily," said George, with great emotion. "You furnish the bread, love, and I will skirmish around and find the water."